Justice Reinvestment is a bipartisan, data-driven criminal justice approach to assist states in reining in the escalating costs of incarceration and reinvest cost savings in high-performing programs that work to reduce recidivism and make our communities safer. It's such an important initiative, and the time for it is so critically important right now. JRI is a very effective approach. Many states just don't have the ability to do that kind of data analysis and policy review to make these kinds of system-wide changes.
This is Governor Corbett from Pennsylvania, former Attorney General, Republican governor for whom Secretary Wetzel at the end of the table works. You'll see here talking about 95% of the budget pie, and one of the huge slices of that budget pie is corrections. And as he says, we can either raise taxes or figure out a way to cut spending on corrections, and I'm not going to raise taxes. Reinvestment is not a policy, right? It's not a particular program. It's just an approach. It's an approach where the states come together, a state, and basically people come across party lines from across government, and they use data to try to figure out how they can make their system stronger. So it's not a particular policy package. It's an approach that states employ. And that's the phase one is this analysis of data. In order for a state to participate, the governor and the legislative leadership and the Chief Justice need to actually sign a letter saying this is something they want to do.
It was the most nonpartisan and bipartisan process I've ever seen.
The beautiful part about criminal justice is it does not have to be political. It does not have to be right versus left. Everybody wants a safe community.
In 2009, there were new admissions to our prison system. 56% of the new admissions to the prison system were from probation revocations. And of that number, 73% were for technical violations. Folks, technical violations is a positive drug screen or failing to report to the office or some event like that, not a new criminal charge or criminal conviction or absconding supervision. The amazing thing, those beds cost us about $30,000 a year, and we were incarcerating low-level felons in the prison system. The urgency was upon us. In my opinion, we got tougher on crime, but we got smarter in how we spent taxpayer dollars.
So I want to then turn to Secretary Wetzel at Pennsylvania. And Secretary Wetzel, I know that when you assumed the head of the department, the state had been looking, or the Commonwealth had been looking at building a prison just about every year. Is that about right?
Yeah, we were adding approximately 2,000 inmates a year, and that's essentially one prison. And the construction cost of one prison for us is about $200 million, but the operational cost is another $60 million a year. So that's basically where we're at. Over the 10 years before we took over as administration, the population grew in the department 40%. Budget grew 77%. Those are two kind of alarming numbers, but they're not the most alarming. Let me give you the most alarming number. Of the people who got out, 62% were either reincarcerated or arrested. So you got a system that has grown to a point where it's cost $2 billion. And on top of that, it's not accomplishing much. Other than that, we were doing great. Sadly, in corrections, people don't pay for results. Nobody balks. In the 10 years before we came, the Department of Corrections got an increase every year. Our first year, I got an increase of $186 million in the budget. Nobody blinks an eye because we have this perception that if we lock people up, we're safer. And the reality is, if we lock the right people up in a place that has the right programs, when they get out, yeah, we are safer. But when we lock the wrong people up, we're not.
So, Jim Stewart, you saw the prison population, as you mentioned earlier, growing in South Dakota fivefold. Governor's newly elected. What was different in that situation than, say, his predecessor to tackle this issue?
Well, obviously the population's important, the money's important, but when you take a look at what's going on around the rest of the country, in the last 10 years, 17 states have lowered their imprisonment rate, and their crime rate's also gone down. So when we started to look at this process, we looked at corrections and we said, You know, corrections is the one part of state government that doesn't get evaluated in terms of, are we getting the best bang for our buck? So we compared the U.S. crime rate to the South Dakota crime rate. And in the last 10 years, the U.S. crime rate went down 19%. The South Dakota crime rate only went down 9%. Their imprisonment rate, U.S.-wide, only went up 1.6%, and our imprisonment rate went up 18%. So we were imprisoning many more people, and our crime rate was not coming down the way that it was in the rest of the country.
JRI is that smart investment. It would allow us to provide services, training, and technical assistance to more states, and believe me, there's a demand for that. It would allow us to focus more on the implementation phase of JRI, which is so extremely important, and allow us to provide more funding to states to really kickstart the changes that they have legislated in their states.
We're heading in the right direction, and we're doing it the right way by focusing on outcomes.